Hello, welcome to the first year diploma course of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology, Kolkata. I'm Dr. Indrajit Bose and I shall be your course coordinator for this session. This paper is entitled Communicative English, and in the course of this paper, we are exploring the various forms, modes, and uses of spoken and written forms of English at the workplace. I think you are all aware that once you pass out of this course, which is a skills-based course, you shall be joining the industry. And there you will need to prepare reports, conduct various interviews, do discussions, take part in seminars and meetings, and deal with clients or give briefings about new machinery or sales strategies. So you will need to use English on a day-to-day basis, both for spoken and written requirements. So to help you with that, we are here offering various modules in this paper on communicative English. This particular lecture, lecture 13 in the series, is from Unit 4, where we are developing on conducting research and compiling the results of that research together in the form of a report. Now, this particular lecture is entitled Compiling Research Findings, and we shall be exploring in this particular lecture how the findings and the materials that have been gathered as a result of some investigation or study can be brought together to make up the raw material for the preparation of a report. Now, in the course of this lecture, therefore, we shall be looking at how the materials gathered from research are to be assembled together. What about gathering and collecting these materials? What is the underlying principle behind that? How they are to be brought together, how they are to be sorted, and also the means of organizing and classifying these materials, preparing of abstracts and summaries, indexing of reports and other materials, and a balanced overview, so that we get all the material for the preparation of the report out of the materials which have been gathered from conducting the research. Now, let me give you an example, or let us begin with an example. Let us say that there is a rural district in Madhya Pradesh where the river water has been polluted, or there have been complaints from the villagers that the river water has shown alarming degrees of industrial pollutants. Now, there is a factory or a leather factory which has been set up recently in the area, and there is the allegation made by the villagers that it is emptying its effluents or chemical wastes into the waters of the river, leading to serious incidences of water pollution in the area, and the marine life or the ecology of the entire region is changing as a result of this pollution. Now, the Pollution Control Board has sent a representative to this region to conduct a detailed study or investigation into this allegation of river water pollution. And the representative or the officer has made a detailed study or research into this particular incident. And a report is compiled as a result of this study. So, the research that we are talking about over here is a research into an instance of industrial pollution, or apparently the reason is industrial pollution. So it's a case study of industrial pollution in an agricultural region. Now, if you are to undertake a research of this kind, what type of research methods would you be using? Obviously, you would use field study. The officer has to go over there actually and conduct an investigation or inquiry. So field study could be called for. Also interviews, observation of how that industrial plant is managing its effluents, how it is releasing the effluents if it is doing so, what kind of waste disposal system it has, what the officers of that particular factory have to say regarding their waste disposal system. So again, interviews will have to be taken. So field study report, interview reports, and also experiments or samples of river water have to be taken for chemical testing, and also there will be reports from the chemical studies of the river water. So these are all the methods of research that have gone into the preparation of this report on industrial pollution in this region. Now let us suppose that the report is not yet written. So what do we have? We have a huge corpus or a huge body of unclassified data from the research, including the interviews conducted, the observation, the field studies that have been made, and the photographs that have been taken, the chemical testing, the sampling that has been done. The data is diverse in nature, very comprehensive in scope, and very teasingly complex and heterogeneous in character. In fact, we might be puzzled as to how to assemble this data of such a heterogeneous nature together to form something homogeneous in the body of the investigative report. So what is very importantly called for over here is the ability to methodically and systematically compile this data. And we are going to talk about this compiling and this classifying of heterogeneous data together and the way that it is done or the manner in which it is done. I hope it is clear to you. Yes. So what are we talking about? We are not just talking about research being conducted or investigation being done. No, we have talked about such things before. I have talked about the techniques of data collection, the methods of investigation and research with you before. So let us suppose that you have undergone all that research, you have collected all that data, you have made notes, you have got samples of chemical testing, you have got the chemist's reports, you have got the interview sheets, or you've got the recordings of the interviews, you've prepared the transcripts of the interviews, you have got all this together, but it is very, very detailed and lengthy and complex in nature. So you need to put it all together. How are you going to do that? How does one find some kind of method in this madness, or rather some kind of reason in this heterogeneity? So let us try and explore how we can classify and organize this kind of heterogeneous material together in the report. Now, to begin with, we might talk a little bit about the way in which the data is to be preserved and stored. Now, research data, or the data which is collected on the basis of the research or the investigation has immediate relevance. For example, for the chemicals that have been tested, the chemical testing of river water, obviously the results that we have got from that would have an immediate bearing on this case of industrial pollution. So also other types of data which is gathered from research. Sorry. Now, apart from this immediate or contextual relevance, the data that is gathered or the information that is gathered needs to be stored and sustained for a fairly longish period of time, because data gathered from research and investigation tends to have a rather long shelf life. So we need to store this. How do we store? Obviously, if I'm collecting the information, then I will write down or jot down in notepads or on paper or in notebooks, files, or maintain folders. I can also store data in soft copy, like for example, interview recordings and transcripts with pen drives or on disks, and keep a hard copy backup or keep a printout of these soft copy materials. So this is something in the short run. Obviously, this does not suffice for long-term storage where we need to have more reliable backup. So for long-term storage, you need more efficient filing systems, hard drives, or data CDs, and electronic databases. Nowadays, especially, cloud storage is emerging as increasingly important because the data remains safe and secure. It cannot be affected by any kind of washout or any sort of damage. Even data disks are known to be damaged at some point in time or the other. So the cloud storage data remains safe from hackers. It remains intact and it remains tamper proof. Nobody can tamper with that material. And it remains accessible easily at any point of time. And it doesn't consume space on hard disk, or it doesn't consume any storage space as such on physical digital means of storage. You only need to have the cloud storage account. So just barring that, it is an extremely convenient, easy to use, and a very convenient way of digital storage that is available nowadays. So for long-term backup of data, especially large quantities of data, you can do no better than to opt for some sort of cloud storage. Also, to keep the material in electronic databases, where again, there is efficient searching mechanisms and you can go and search the data and access it at any point of time. Now, obviously, when we are doing the research, we need to organize the materials which we have built up bit by bit, or where we have stored the information or the data that we have gathered from the research. So where do we keep all these notepads, notebooks, files, and folders? Obviously, we need some storage space in bookshelves and cupboards. Also, you probably have a desk or working space at home or at your office or your working place. So try to keep it as clean and neat and clutter-free as possible. Also keep pen and clips and other supplies which you use with your work handy, and stock up on CD-ROMs and DVDs and printer cartridges. Also keep a good supply of pens, markers, highlighters, and others for doing your work, and keep yourself updated. Now, when you are doing your research, it is very important. I think I have already mentioned this before, that apart from keeping the material as a soft copy in pen drives or in CD-ROMs, you can keep written records of your research. In fact, you do need to keep written records of your research. It is very, very important. Also, keep diaries and planners and schedules, because then you can keep a track of how much time you are spending in doing which part of the work and how much time you have left to complete the work. Also, make notes and mark out deadlines on the desk calendars. Now, try to file away the notes and materials as efficiently as possible. So you can have a filing system with files classified by date or subject or the source which have been used. So file them away either chronologically or subject wise and store them in a safe place so that they are not affected by any changes due to weather or insects or termites or any such pests. If you have photocopies or if you have to keep photocopies in plastic packets or files or in cardboard boxes and label them and keep some idea of what exactly you have and how many photocopies you have kept over there. It is very essential nowadays to digitalize the records wherever necessary. So paper copies or hard copies of research articles and files, file papers, they can all grow brittle over time. They get yellowed, they get brittle, and they tear and get destroyed over time. Whereas if I keep a scanned copy, then I can keep it in cloud storage or I can keep it somewhere else where it will stay safe, like in a Google account, for example. It will stay safe and I can access it whenever I want to at any point of time. So these are a couple of things to be kept in mind regarding the preservation of the research data. And it is very, very important to preserve this research data. Because as I've said, the data not only has immediate relevance or contextual relevance, it has very important long-term references. And one can refer back to research that has been done quite some time previously. So writing them properly, I mean the records of research properly, and filing them away in a systematic way, these are two very important things that need to be done if you are doing any research. Now, to begin this process now of compiling the materials of research together, let us say that you have completed the process of research or investigation. So you have taken the interviews, you have jotted down the observations, you have made the comparisons and contrasts, you have done the bibliographic research, you have compared with other reports, with other situations, you have done field trips, you have got all the information together. Now, what do you do in order to start preparing the report? Can you start writing down the report straight away? No, that is a pretty slipshod way of going about this business. You cannot start writing or planning the report with such heterogeneous material. So, how do you classify and organize this material? So, first thing to be done is to sort this material according to the genre. Observations, field studies, interviews, separate these files and sort them by genre, taking all the observation reports together for 1 year, taking all the field study reports together, taking all the interviews together. So this way, by sorting like with like, you are kind of preparing a whole overview of the entire system. So you will know exactly how many interviews you have got and what people have said in these interviews and how many field studies have been conducted and what sort of findings you have got from the field study. So what you are doing is to prepare all this data to get a bird's eye view of the data. There is an inclusive perspective or a composite picture that you are trying to build. You understand? So trying to get this bird's eye view means to take a view from a great distance, because then only you can see the entire surrounding countryside turned up to you for inspection. So you sort out the data that is collected together, sorted by genre, and arrange it and then subdivide it next chronologically in sequence. For example, like I have done in this chart over here, folder 1 contains interviews, folder 2 is an observation diary, and folder 3 consists of questionnaires. In folder 1, there are further subdivisions. 1.1 is an interview with the Chief General Manager of Noga Plant. 1.2 is an interview with the Area Manager of Noga Plant. And 1.3 is an interview with the Plant Supervisor of the Noga Plant on 17/7/2018. Then folder 2 consists of an observation diary with observations on various dates. Folder 3 contains all the questionnaires taken together. So if I organize my materials like this, interviews, observation diary, questionnaires, and so on. So what I have done is I have in one stroke reduced all this heterogeneous material into an organized whole. The material is now organized and I can move further with this. Now, once all the material is organized, the next job is something that you have to do, that is to inspect. And for inspection, one has to read through the entire corpus of materials in a highly systematic way and make notes, or in other words, mark out or highlight the important extracts in this material. Okay, let us see how this is done. So let us say that I have gone to the second stage. I have gathered all the materials together and I have made notes from them, or I have noted down some of the highlights. Now, what is it that we will do now? Now, what we are doing is, in this sorted material, we are doing the highlighting and abstracting of important points. Now, first of all, what you can do is to mark out the important extracts and points by using visual highlighting if necessary. So how do you do visual highlighting? Yes, very simple. You can use a sketch pen or you can use a highlighter pen to highlight it. Preferably use colors which are very striking or which strike the eye so that you can remember. Then divide the material into manageable segments. The whole material might contain a lot. Like for example, in the interview section, there are interviews of 12 people. So that is a lot. Each interview might be several pages long in terms of transcript, and in terms of recording might be several minutes long. So divide this material into segments. Interview taken on this date, interview taken on the other date, the interview on the next date, and so on. So there will be a sequence of dates and sequence of interviews. So organize this material, divide it into segments, then jot down the important points. Does all this material you have, which is so heterogeneous, does it all contain important points, or is the entire material really important? It may not be. Okay, so I have to find out for myself which sections are really important and which sections are not. Now, it is up to the researcher to decide for himself or herself which sections contain material that is informative, meaningful, and relevant to the writing of the report, and which parts are not directly relevant or which contain material of secondary significance to the report. So, one way of including these materials which are not a part of the main report or which cannot really be a part of the main report is to include this secondary material or the materials which are not directly relevant in a part like the appendix at the end of the report. Okay, now we have gathered the material together, we have even classified and sorted it out. Now, what next remains for us to do? It's very simple. The next stage is refer back to the research questions. Go back to the research questions. Are the research questions really answered? Have you managed to answer the important research questions that were posed? Do any further points need explanations, glosses, textual glosses, or references? If so, you can start searching for these textual references and glosses at this point. Is any further research needed? Now, it might be that the research that you have done is of extremely high quality and relevant, so you don't really need to do any further research. Or it can be that the work that you have done really covers only the tip of the iceberg and that there are a lot of unexplored regions lying beneath. So in that case, you will have to do more of such research in order to complete the work and to give a justification for the report that you bring out. So refer back to the research questions and see whether they are answered or not, and if any part requires textual gloss or reference or explanations, please add it over there. Okay, what do we do next? Let us explore. Okay, after this highlighting and abstracting, what we do is to make summaries or make a summary sheet. Now, I think this is still not clear to you as such from what I have said, but I will try and explain how this is done. Now, after the preliminary study that had been made in order to do the research, and finally, the overview of the materials that have been gathered together, we have to make one-page summaries of the research findings that have been obtained. Okay, now what are you going to do? You are going to make a materials overview. Now, from this materials overview, you will put certain points together. What are they? The pages containing the important abstracts or sections. So select those important extracts and put them together. Again, make a brief outline of the key points and use textual markers in order to highlight important points, names, and other details. Be very, very alert. Then, what you can do is to select the important charts, graphs, and data sheets. In the course of the research, you may well have prepared a number of graphs and data sheets. So now is the time to use them. So once again, you need to put them all together because they contain the statistical side of the research, which is very, very important. Now, once you have selected the important abstracts, you have jotted down an outline of the key points, you have selected the important charts, graphs, and data sheets, then you can proceed further. Now, what does it mean by proceeding further? What it means is really that you can draw up a detailed single sheet table. Like suppose you have 17 different tables. Now going through all those 17 would be a daunting task. and it would in no wise help us in preparing the report. So what we can do is to give a kind of a summary or overview in a single page. So reduce 7 different data sheets into a single data sheet. So that needs consolidation, amalgamation of data, and putting it all together. So draw up single data sheet tables and give a summary overview in a single page. And what is important is to arrange the summary sheets and the data records in a sequential order. Okay, now next what you can do is to take all the reports together by genre. Prepare a single sheet report index. Now perhaps you will ask me, what is this single sheet report index? What is that? Let me explain. Now, let us say that I have got 4 different kinds of reports about this agricultural region where industrial pollution is taking place. One of them is an ecology report prepared by the report on the local river pollution. Another is an industrial report. Still another one is an annual report, and the fourth one is also an annual report. They are all based on data gathering and research of various issues and pointers in the agricultural region where industrial pollution is taking place. Now, you will notice over here that there has been a table which has been drawn up, and the classification criteria have been selected so that I can take a glance at the contents of so many reports in one go. It's a single page display. Like, for example, the subject or content of these tables or sheets, the structure, the figures, charts, and tables that these reports contain, the time period, and the references. So you will notice that there are 4 different reports which are referred to over here. So the subject or the content is given, the title is given, the nature of the report is also indicated, the figures, tables, and charts which are contained, it is mentioned which year they seem to have the time period for, and the references including the names of the authors and the page numbers of books, that is also given. So the index of the report is well prepared. So I have done my research on the topic. I have gathered all the data sheets of the report together. I have made abstracts from the data sheets. I have marked out the important points and relevant points in the material that I have gathered together, and I have examined the relevance of all this with the research questions. So I have seen whether the questions are meaningful and relevant in the present context or not. I have also prepared an index of reports that this material contains, and I have done other single sheet assemblies so that I can take an overview or cross-sectional view of really a large amount of data. Now, once this is done, I have to assemble all the materials which are relevant together. So the data sheets, the outlines, the report index, the observation summary charts, the field trip report abstracts, the interview summary sheets. So compiling means that I will bring all this together. Now, ensure that these things are brought together fairly quickly so that the immediate relevance of the report is not lost, and that the research questions can be satisfactorily answered within a short span of time. So bring together all these relevant materials and evaluate this material's digest. Now, does it fit the research questions? Prepare and fit them together into the report structure. Now, you have probably posed to yourself 3 or 4 important or crucial questions in doing this research. And of course, the answering of the research questions enables you to get a satisfactory report and to really validate the work that you have done in preparing the report. So, the compiling of the research data is really a task of consolidation and bringing together of heterogeneous material or data, and in doing that one has to use the powers of selection, judgment, and careful monitoring and systematic recording of data and systematic organization of data also, so that all these heterogeneous materials are classified into different categories. They are put together in various genres and classifications, and in the way that they bring out certain findings, they answer the research questions and make the task of report writing easier. So, in the course of this lecture today, we have seen how the materials gathered from research or inquiry or investigation are brought together and compiled together, and from these materials the report proper can be written. So we will explore more of report writing in our next lecture. So with that, from here it is goodbye for now.